Yes.
Good evening, everyone. How you doing? So today I actually wanted to go through a bit of a thought experiment here. I wanted to make what might seem like a surprising comparison at first, but I think once I go over these comparisons, I think you might find that this Player of the Month, Alexia Putellas SBC, actually seems better than it did at first glance. Now, we got a lot to dive into, kind of. I'm going to try to go through it as succinctly as possible. But as always, I appreciate you bearing with me and sticking with me while we talk through this. Now, we're going to toggle between the screen that I was just on and our trusty notepad. And this is going to guide my train of thought. So, first of all, Putellas has almost the same in-game stats as Zidane. And also, before I shift back to the other screen, I think it's really important to highlight that both of them are five-star players, and both of them, their best position is cam in game. And both of them can technically play center mid, although I would argue that a player like Alexia Putellas can play a bit better in the center mid position. And actually, I think people could argue that she plays way better in a center mid position, but we'll get to that in a bit. So now you can see on the comparison here, the face card stats look a lot better for Zidane, but the actual total in games are actually way more similar than you might think. So both of them seem to have 83 pace, 90 shooting. Zidane has 3 more passing on the face stat, 2 more dribbling, same defending, and 5 more physicals. Based on that, you would think he has quite a few more in-games, but really he only has a total of 16 more in-game stats than Alexia. Also, I think I should highlight before we go any further, both of their playstyles are really insane, really meta, really good playstyles. But when I think about it, I believe that Tiki Taka Plus actually opens up a lot more in terms of what you can do in this game than Incisive Pass Plus, as much as I personally love Incisive Pass Plus. Incisive Pass Plus is arguably my favorite playstyle in the game, actually. But I don't want to downplay how valuable Tiki Taka Plus is in the final third or even in the build-up. So I think it's important to highlight both of those. And let's go through all of their playstyles. So they share a lot of the same playstyles. They both have finesse on basic. Putellas has incisive on basic. Zidane has long ball, which Putellas does not. But Putellas has ping pass. Zidane does not. They both have technical. They both have flair. And they both have first touch. Zidane also has Trivela for what it's worth, although I will say that Trivelas have been nerfed since the patch. Perhaps pre-patch, this would have been even more of a difference maker in Zidane's favor. I would say it's not that big of a deal now, although it is a nice playstyle, okay? Depending on who you are and how you use the Trivela shot, and if you're green timing Trivela shots or you're spamming that, if you're that kind of player, then obviously Trivela is helpful. If you're not that kind of player, I'm not that kind of player. I don't think most people are that kind of player. Then Trivela isn't the most crucial playstyle for you on basic especially. You know what? I don't think we can see the roles here. So let's just briefly go over their roles before we go into the in-games. If you play Putellas in a CM role, then she has Playmaker on ++. Zidane in a CM role has Playmaker on +. I think that's not too much of a difference, but certainly it's in Putellas' favor. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you're certain that you prefer Playmaker in a cam role, Zidane has that on ++. Now, Putellas, this is kind of interesting. If you are not sure or you want more flexibility and you want to sort of play it safe with your cam because you're not sure which role you might prefer, although I do believe, honestly, that roles are completely busted. They don't work properly. The AI, attacking AI is horrible. I know I've said that before. Although that is essentially true, you know, certainly you can argue that having a card in a plus or plus plus gives you a better chance of them working compared to not having them on the roll at all. It could only get worse without them having an inherent role in that position, or if you're playing them out of their normal role, right? So in a cam position, she has both Playmaker and Shadow Striker on 1+. So Shadow Striker, if you find that to be better for you, that is a point in Putellas' favor. With that being said, let's just go into the stats. Pace-wise, they're pretty much identical, okay? Shooting-wise, Putellas has a couple in her favor, Zidane a couple in his favor. I'm not going to read them out, I don't think, line by line, because I think you can see on the screen here. But you can see their shooting is nearly actually identical, okay? Just like the pace. Now, passing obviously is in Zidane's favor. Better vision, better crossing, although you're usually not crossing with your cam in the first place. Same free kick accuracy. He does have better short and long passing. She has a bit better curve. Obviously, this is in Zidane's favor. Now, here is a big point in Putellas' favor here coming up with the dribbling. So she has 91 agility and 90 balance compared to Zidane having 78 agility and 85 balance. Now, Zidane has the upper hand in reactions, ball control, actual in-game dribbling, and composure. Those are all very useful as well. I feel like 78 agility is definitely on the low side, especially for such an expensive player like Zidane. And I think for people who are looking for any semblance of sort of responsiveness from the players that they're using in game, I think you're obviously going to have a much better time with a player like Putellas if what you value is a responsive feel. And I think a lot of us sort of crave that, for lack of a better term, because it's so hard to find in this game, right? And I just think that this is a very valuable point in Putellas' favor, basically. And then when we move forward and we look at defending, they're very similar. Zidane has a few in his favor and Putellas a few in her favor. What's interesting is Zidane does have way better heading accuracy. The rest of the stats are much more comparable, but I guess, you know, the EA, you know, doesn't really value heading accuracy too much, so it doesn't really boost his in-game face stat for defending that much, right? But if you value that kind of thing, okay, he has 11 better heading accuracy. And then lastly, unfortunately, the way my screen works, I can't actually show you too well on this screen the physicality difference, but I'll just describe it here. So if you're listening, there's not a visual to accompany that, but Putellas has 12 better jumping, which means nothing because Zidane is way taller. And by the way, it's worth mentioning before I forget, obviously, because of Putellas' height, she is shorter. But to be honest, in a lot of ways, these shorter, leaner players in game, they perform very well in some ways. That a big, sort of thicker player in game won't give you that same advantage. They do have trade-offs, but I think most people would agree that like a leaner, not overly tall, like +6 foot player in this game, the only 6 foot plus players that feel really good to use in this game are players like, you know, Liao or Nico Williams and players like this that are pretty tall players. They're lean, they're agile, they're fast as hell. Those kinds of players are very meta, don't get me wrong. But when you're like a stockier, you know, well over 6 foot player, I don't know. I just feel like it's not the best, basically, at least personally. They have the exact same stamina. I know you can't see, but that's at the very bottom there. And then Zidane has 7 more strength and 6 more aggression. So that's why he gets more physicality, mainly because of the strength difference. So now let's pivot back. We've sort of gone through all of the relevant parts of these cards. Personally, if I were to use either of them, I would probably use them in a cam roll on a hunter. But that's just me. You could justify giving either of them a shadow or maybe even an engine. You could honestly justify, I think, any one of those three are probably your 3 front runners in terms of a chem style you would apply, depending on what you want out of the card and how you want the card to feel in game. Now, let's see. So, you know, The only thing I'm second guessing is claiming that Putellas is way better as a center mid, 100%. This is a point that I believe she will be better as a center mid. So I'll tell you what I'll do here. Just even though it's retroactive, we're going to do this. I'll say this historically. Honestly, because these are reported by players, especially very good players. I know this to be true based on their accounts of using these kinds of players a lot. Historically, Putellas is a better, and I'm gonna take this 100% out of here, right? What I really should have made a note of here is historically Putellas is a better center mid, right? That's fair. That's fair. Now, lastly, okay, we're gonna pivot here for a sec. Imagine, this is kind of the point of the thought experiment. Imagine a Zidane quality card, because you could argue if you have a personal preference to a card like Zidane, okay, of course it's your right to be biased in favor of Zidane. I've got no problem with that whatsoever, and you can make an argument for that. But I think it's very fair to say that these cards are way more similar than any other cards in the game. To each other, they're extremely similar, except for their body type. In-game stats are extremely similar. And they're 5-star cams. Okay. Similar, even defending, for example, which is rare. Now, Zidane may have better links for a lot of people, but I would actually argue that Putellas' links in some cases are actually at least as good, if not better than Zidane's. For example, if you're someone who really wants to use a player like Hansen or even Patri Guijarro, right? Or other Barcelona players that are obviously in La Liga, not necessarily just Liga F, right? Or maybe you have a preference to use even Spanish players, like even a player like Adama and stuff like that, although the links are much weaker there, right? There are actually a lot of cases where the Barcelona links are better even than Zidane's icon French links. But that depends on the team, right? Depends on each person's situation. These things are not true across the board. It's sort of situational. Now, when Putellas SBC dropped, she was at basically 1.5 mil. And I actually should have made a video sort of predicting this, because I actually did think that this would be about the price. I mentioned it to my cousins. I figured this would be the price of the card. But because Fodder is quite high, her price is actually already dropping. So when I pull up this tab here, she's already down theoretically to closer to 1.3. And I wouldn't be that surprised if that price drops a little bit more because of Fodder fluctuations between now and Black Friday. Now, there might be times where the Fodder goes back up between now and then, so her price will fluctuate. But this is ultimately a 1.2 to 1.5 million coin SBC, and you have a player like Zidane, which she is legitimately comparable to. And Zidane is like 4 mil on foot.gg. And if you go to Footbin, if you're curious, if you're someone who plays on PC, I can't see the PC price on foot.gg, but look, I mean, this is the thing. If you're on PC, I know a smaller percentage of you might be playing on PC. I play on PC. So this makes a huge difference for someone on PC, because this kind of card is way more unattainable on PC than it is on console. And actually the same is true for Putellas. All right, because if you look at her transfer market card, now she crashed a lot on PC because of this, but just a few days ago, her transfer market card was 3.7. It's like double, right? Which is insane. She was 1.8 on console, 3.7 on PC a few days ago before this dropped. And even still, she's like, 35% more. So because of that, if you're on PC, it makes even more sense, because it's much more of a relative discount on PC. But I know, see, what people are going to do, and I get it. If you're not someone who's really grinding the game much, or you're not playing in the higher divisions, or you're not hitting high ranks in weekend league and stuff, totally fair. you're going to be less inclined, which is totally fair, to just use her gold card. Totally justifiable. I actually totally agree with that. So if we want to take a look at her gold card, 3 to 400. Basically, you have a Zidane level card, pretty much. If you want to argue it's like a -1, instead of a 94 Zidane, it's like a 93 Zidane, pretty much. I would hear out that argument. It's still practically Zidane for 1.5 mil. And the last main point I want to cover is this last one down at the bottom of the notepad here, which is that not only will fodder fluctuate and might go down between now and Black Friday, what is guaranteed is that there will be plenty of upgrade packs. Most of those packs are going to require Team of the Weeks. If you're someone who has been saving Team of the Weeks and sort of managing your club like that, whether they're untradeable or tradable, but especially untradeable, you are setting yourself up to basically complete many, many upgrade packs. And an SBC like this will be actually much closer to free. In fact, you can theoretically get this SBC done for free. Let's say you even saved a lot of packs for Black Friday and you wanted to rinse all the cards that you're opening from your packs into this SBC. If you save enough and you grind the game enough, let's just say, if you're someone sort of towards that side of the spectrum in the game, you actually do this card for like 80% off to like 100% off. I'm not joking. And the last important point is that in order to do that, you have to be someone who, and I'm only referring, by the way, I should have mentioned this closer to the beginning of the video. This whole discussion is really for RTG players, right? People who are legitimately not spending money on the game, right? Because if you're spending money on the game consistently, there's hardly any, this video is pointless for someone who's spending money on the game, because this is a no-brainer. You just do this card. If you're opening store packs, this kind of thing is not even a discussion. You just do this card. You have a Player of the Month Putellas, just like a bunch of other cards you have, because you're spending tons of money on the game. So that's not really sort of, audience that I'm trying to communicate this train of thought to, because it's not really that relevant for them. Back to this point here about gamble SBCs, will want to avoid all gamble SBCs. And for reference, I'm someone who really has an aversion to gamble SBCs. I haven't done a single hero gamble pack. I haven't done a single icon gamble pack. In general, I actually avoid most of those. And then what I do is I manage my club and save a lot of high-end fodder to be able to do, in previous years, a Player of the Month Mbappe for damn near free or like 90% off. And now, for example, this year, I'm in a position to actually do this SBC between now and Black Friday. I'll decide on when I want to sort of pull the trigger on that, depending on how things shake out. But I'm in a position where I can do this actually very effectively over this period of time and end up getting the card for essentially free. That's pretty much it. Oh, I'll say one last thing. This is not as relevant as everything else, but for context, I've been saving my fodder. The only player SBCs that I've done a lot of Team of the Week SBCs and stuff like that, but the only player SBCs that I've done so far are the Rudder 5-star card, the Lukeba Trailblazers SBC, which was really cheap, the Sissoko SBC, which was very cheap. I also did the Lua Player of the Month. Basically, I decided to sell Griezmann for profit and do the Lewandowski Player of the Month because I just feel like I wanted to try a more physical striker. I've done 4 player SBCs, which amounted to 500k or so in fodder, mid-range fodder to low-end fodder. And I've done all those for essentially free. And all the higher rated 88 plus cards that I've packed so far this year are either in duplicate storage or still in the club. So I'm in a prime position for a card like this, for reference. And I guess, to end the video, I'm wondering, what do you think about this SBC based on, the theme you have for your team and the state of your club and stuff like that. And if you have any other thoughts, feel free to chime in. I believe I covered pretty much all main things, but I might have missed an aspect here and there, maybe something minor. And if you feel that way, maybe feel free to chime in and add to this sort of thought experiment. So that's my take on the SBC. If you are someone who's playing the game, especially getting a lot more rewards from constantly playing for the rush objective rewards and division rival rewards, and you're playing weekend leagues pretty consistently or every weekend, then this upgrade is a lot more appealing to you. If you are someone who is not doing all those things, I totally agree that keeping the gold card or just buying the gold card with coins makes way more sense. Or if you were lucky enough to pack the gold card already, then it makes a lot less sense to do an SBC like this, obviously. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, as usual, I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for being here. Thank you for commenting. Until next time, peace.